What's up, guys, and welcome back to Rougefx. Today we are going over GBPUSD, going over a few scalp and intraday trade setups using the Roguefx simplest trading method to date. If you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel because we do aim to post consistently. I do appreciate all the love, all the support. Everyone who does very much hit that like button, of course, the subscribe button. Before I go ahead and get started, I want to emphasize that this is very much the simplest trading method to date. With that being said, yes, of course, it's fairly easy to, in whichever case, comprehend, understand. In whichever case, it's pretty simple to sit and absorb knowledge. However, in order to get to where I am, as far as this level in my trading journey, of course, it took a good amount of years, actually. Coming up on my 5th year, I am very grateful to be in the position I am in to be of service to trading communities across the globe, as well as be able to make an impact, leave my mark on a very special industry, a very competitive industry, a very talented industry. I do provide mentorship through my membership program. I also teach hourly sessions. If you are looking to learn more about Forex trading or any kind of trading in general, of course, you're in the right place. No, I do not charge for my course. My course is free of charge. All my concepts are very much free. You will find them down in the playlist below. Without further ado, let's get started. So very much looking at our first setup, it is important to understand essentially where our liquidity is located, right? So we very much have, in whichever case, a weak high or 3 candle formation. We also have, in whichever case, an imbalanced close price action, and above that we have a fairly significant mitigation sequence. This will provide us with a pretty significant target to aim for, maybe the last first or maybe the fair value, just a target, and give us a brief understanding of where we are looking to expect a shift in momentum within price, of course, right? So how did we get this entry? Well, it was fairly simple. We have, in whichever case, we have a weak low, a weak high. Now, in this case, we are presented with a fairly significant order block. Now, if I simply redefine this, in whichever case, order block to a breaker, very much stretch it out, we very much have a significant area to, in whichever case, expect an optimal trade entry. Understanding where liquidity is being, in whichever case, provided, we understand where our targets lie, as well as our stop loss placement. We scale in a significant entry within, in whichever case, this Monday New York time window. Hold to our mitigation sequence because, of course, liquidity grabs very much do magnetize towards mitigation sequences, confirming our overall bias to very much be correct, as well as our ability to secure profits. Moving on to our next trade, it is very much important to really kind of understand what's kind of going on or taking place within, in whichever case, this particular range. We have a very significant imbalance within price following this bullish rejection block towards the highs. Price retest, leaves a weak low, retraces, in whichever case, to mitigate an unmitigated wick and reach for, in whichever case, liquidity, which is going to act as, in whichever case, a trend line, 3 candle formation. Fairly simple. Now that it is understood that price is very much reaching for, in whichever case, a significant point of interest of liquidity, we can very much look left and locate a, in whichever case, is going to look like a weak low, a weak high. We very much have an established point of interest. Now taking this point of interest and redefining it towards its nearest, in whichever case, breaker block, stretching it out, we very much are presented with a fairly significant point of interest, allowing us to realize the reason why price is finding support within our particular range. It is important to understand that you can very much redefine this point of interest to its nearest, in whichever case, POI with the highest volume, right? Now, we very much have a area of we'll just call this a liquidity pool, right? So we have a liquidity pool. If I stretch this to the left and realize our significance of our point of interest, you can very much identify this bearish pin bar as a significant or fairly relevant breaker for price to very much rebalance off of. We very much have our stop loss respected, as well as understanding, or we are very much in understanding of our weak high presenting a three candle formation, as well as maybe a slanted low to very much reach for. This is very much understanding that mitigation sequences do breed or create liquidity grabs or opportunities for price to, in whichever case, this case, continue in an expansion towards the highs, or in whichever case, a rally. Very much stretch this out for confirmation. As you can see, with this liquidity grab, triggered buy stops on and reverse to, of course, stop them out. Looking at our next piece of price action, it is important to understand that price very much did just get done performing a liquidity grab. At this point, it is understood that price has very much revealed its hand, in whichever case, this being a protected high, and these cluster of weak lows, of course, being weak lows. At this point, we can very much identify our weak low as a target, as well as our strong high as a, in whichever case, a stop loss. It is also very much important to understand that below this weak low, we very much have an imbalanced closed price action. We can very much redefine this and very much stretch this out for a significant point of interest to be obviously, again, targeted. Now, as far as understanding our point of interest that we will be, in whichever case, retracing from, we are very much presented with a weak high and a plethora of weak lows, but we're just going to settle for, in whichever case, our most recent weak low. Identifying this as a fairly significant point of interest, we can very much stretch it out and understand that our stop loss is very much secure, as well as our take profit. It is very much important to understand that mitigation sequences do very much breed liquidity grabs, liquidity being within a cluster of weak lows. My friends, if you have yet to gauge a significant understanding of how I pretty much identify my processes, understand it's going to take time. It's going to take that work. Nothing is free in this life. I'm sorry to really kind of tell you guys, nothing is really free in this life. And that includes knowledge, right? Knowledge needs to be, in whichever case, worked on, implemented, as well as applied a significant amount of times before your brain kind of registers it as essentially what it is, right? And essentially what I'm presenting to you is essentially, again, what it is. However, it is important to understand the process that comes with understanding, in whichever case, the hardest game in the world at a simplistic but significant level, right? When it comes to these next two trade opportunities, it is important to understand that price did assume a particular low, or this particular low to indicate a protected low. How do we know that? Because we very much took out intolerance liquidity, broke structure in the opposite direction. On its way there, we were able to, of course, scale in two significant setups, being a confirmation as well as late entry. Now, if these are both confirmation and late entries, this has to be, in whichever case, going to regard as a direct entry, right? This direct entry very much mitigated an unmitigated wick. Mitigation sequences very much do breed liquidity grabs. Now, if I take my point of interest and transfer it to the candlestick with the highest volume, at this point, we very much have a breaker, a weak low, weak high. We stretch this out. We have a fairly significant point of interest. Yes, our stop loss was, in whichever case, not necessarily the best in regards to obviously it coinciding with our overall point of interest. However, that is fine, because how I kind of saw this as opportunity may have actually triggered a lot of people. How do I come to that conclusion? Well, I have a fair value that I was looking to see very much hold as a demand zone. Why did the price continue towards the lows, or the third key level? It is important to realize that we very much have a tap on the third key level. We have a tap on, in whichever case, the fair value equilibrium. And the only thing that was really missing for real was a tap on the first key level. You see how we're climbing these steps of, in whichever case, my Fibonacci retracement. This is how you use the retracement. This is understanding not only price action, but how it behaves according to, of course, your key levels. Understand that price isn't reacting towards these key levels for no reason, especially like this. Understand that above each high and low is very much liquidity being very much grabbed as well as mitigated towards. Now, when we can understand this to very much be a protected low, we can very much transfer this trend line to, in whichever case, our inducement and take a significant amount of, in whichever case, higher lows as protected lows. Just regarding our trend line, I very much understand that regarding this second position that we did very much take, it doesn't look like a smart choice to use this as a trend line. However, I will very much help you understand why and how I am able to take this risk, even if it looks, in whichever case, a bit risky. If I transfer my point of interest to the next candlestick with the most volume within, especially around this time area zone, in whichever case, it's very much important to realize that we're going to get a weak low, weak high scenario. Now, of course, it is understood that, very much if you were to take this entry based off of this point of interest, you'd very much be at most hesitant. However, when you understand that volume within each candlestick, not each candlestick per se, but most importantly, your significant blocks that are actually doing things, that are taking out liquidity and going in the opposite direction, or in whichever case, leaving liquidity in a weak high or weak low. Understand that the volume within these particular point of interest are transferable. In whichever case, we can transfer from this breaker block that's being rebalanced off of to an unmitigated wick, very much stretch it out, and understand that we have a significant area of mitigation. If you will allow an adjustment, it is important to understand that price literally breaks structure, retraces, leaves a significant amount of liquidity within being a 3 candle or trend line, rebalances within an unmitigated wick and or imbalance within price action. Now I know what you're saying. Why doesn't price come back down here and finish off this trend line? Well, the simple fact is it doesn't necessarily have to anymore. Why? Because when doing this, when in whichever case using this quote unquote mitigation sequence as a pretty significant demand zone to carry price towards higher prices, price actually left a bulk of sell side liquidity, or in whichever case, sell stops being a slanted low, a mitigation sequence in general being the highest form of liquidity, as well as an imbalance within price action, right? Price left all this liquidity towards, of course, sell side liquidity within sell stops just to come back, liquidate, retest, find a significant supply zone to, in whichever case, liquidate and continue towards the lows. Price has just successfully shifted in momentum, shifted in character. We are now bearish. Understanding how bearish price is, it is very much important to understand that we have a protected high, being in whichever case a strong high, which would indicate our next protected high as, in whichever case, a mitigation sequence redefined. Our next high is going to act as a pretty significant inducement where we can find a fairly reliable trend line. As you can see within price action, we are presented with a weak low, weak high. We can very much redefine our point of interest to, in whichever case, a rebalance within price, stretch it out. This will signify our quote unquote breaker block that we can very much retrace, clear liquidity, and very much descend from. It is important to realize and really kind of understand that mitigation sequences breed liquidity grabs, liquidity being towards the left. It's going to act as a weak low, fairly simple liquidity to really kind of target. Even if it continues and gives that extra amount, and we have a further reach in liquidity for this liquidity grab, understand that in whichever case, the price is just reaching for a 3 candle formation to clear, reverse, and continue to ascend. Moving on to our next setup, it is important to understand where liquidity actually is within this, in whichever case, price action, right? We very much have a significant trend line. If we stretch this out, we will very much understand where price has the potential to very much target, in whichever case it's unmitigated wick. Why isn't this trend line in whichever case valid? Because towards the left, as you can see, price had performed a liquidity grab, assuming that this is a protected high. So our next area of liquidity is going to be or reside within our unmitigated wick. Now that we have our overall target, we can very much understand where price is initially coming from, right? So we very much do have a weak high, weak low being presented. We can very much redefine this candle toward its, in whichever case, equilibrium. Again, guys, I don't want to confuse you. If we're going to take this as a Fibonacci measurement, I'm literally transferring the orders or the volume of the orders from the entire order block to a breaker. Fairly simple, guys. We can very much stretch this out and understand that price is simply using this demand zone as a mitigation sequence. Mitigation sequences breed liquidity grabs, whereas liquidity within this unmitigated wick, we can very much wait for internal range liquidity to very much build up, in whichever case a weak low. Price performs a liquidity grab where we are very much presented with an optimal trade entry. Price continues towards the highs. We have a failure. Price retest for a literally just another opportunity to mitigate this demand zone and continue towards the highs. We are presented with a direct confirmation and late entry. Only secured about 6%, but again, really the sky's the limit. It just really depends on your experience, what you know, and what you don't know, right? And that is literally just being accountable and understanding that, well, what you know or what you think you know is probably not all there is to know. So, of course, understanding that we are very much still dealing with probabilities regardless of how effective or elite your trading system can be. Understand that you're only as good as the trader in whichever regard. You're only as good as the time you put into your craft. You're only as good as the time that you put into your efforts. You're only as good as the time you put into literally anything, my friends. Allow yourself to grow and enjoy the process. Again, my friends, if it doesn't make sense right now, understand that I very much do present a course free of charge on my channel. I do offer mentorships opportunities through my membership. I also do hourly mentorship sessions. Trading is as simple or complex as you make it. It is important to understand that nothing is guaranteed within these markets. It is very much important to understand that within this business, hard work, determination, effort essentially is required in order to become a talented trader. It is not the other way around. This is it, my friends. Trading, summed up of maybe a square rectangle box and a few lines. This is Roguefx Trading. If you did enjoy this video, hit that like button. Very much subscribe to the channel and share this system, this platform, this brand with any struggling Forex trader out there. Understand that you are not alone. Understand that, there is a safe place. Understand that there are people who actually care and understand the struggle that you go through on the daily. And I'd like the opportunity to help. I am very grateful to be in the position to be of service to many trading communities around the globe. It means the world. I thank God every day for it. If this knowledge, in whichever way, looks new or never before seen, there is very much a reason. I feel like that reason is the reason I am essentially presenting all this knowledge, information, value, of course. And I do very much look forward to meeting you in the near future. Until next time on Jody FX.